everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am giving you guys my full review and a few tutorials of the new palette from Dominique Cosmetics. This is called the Celestial Storm, and I was excited about this one only because I really do love Dominique Cosmetics. Their formula is really good, especially their mattes. Their mattes are incredibly pigmented, and this palette was definitely no exception. So you have 3 mattes here on the bottom, 3 mattes here on the top, and then you have 6 shimmers here on the top and 6 shimmers here on the bottom. I absolutely love the way that this palette is laid out. I think that's what I like about the palette the most, even though it's filled with a lot of colors and a lot of colors that I typically don't wear. But I felt that this palette was really easy for me to kind of be a little bit more creative in, only because of the layout. And it feels like everything is just really paired well. Like you have these 2 to work with. You could even kind of mix with these 3, and then you have this one to add you a little bit of pop of that bluish greenish color. You have kind of this warm moment over here on this end, and you also have like some pink here with a pop of this really pretty kind of like a charcoal purplish type of color. And the layout on this is just really good, and I know you guys have probably heard me mention this several times, but I have a definite creative block when it comes to palettes and the way that they're laid out. If they're laid out weird, it's very hard for me to be creative. This one was definitely very easy. Now, I love the Latte palette. The Latte palette is probably my palette that I've reached for the most out of her palettes. I have all of them, and I have a few of her lippies, but this was definitely a fun palette. Many of you guys reached out and said, hey, are you gonna be reviewing the new palette from Dominique Cosmetics? Here we are, and I've created 4 different looks. As you can see, I do have different looks here on my eye. Just to save time so that the video is not really long, I am gonna talk you through each tutorial so you can know how I applied the actual shadows, and then later on after the 4 tutorials I will go ahead and do some swatches of the palette and then give you guys my full final thoughts on the palette. I used every single shade. I wanted to use every single shade in the palette. I was happy I could use all 12 shades for this review, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the tutorials. So this first look is the purple look. So I first grabbed the shade Astrid Lust, and I basically started building that in the crease, and I blended it in. As you can see, it's very pigmented, and the thing that I liked about this purple in particular, there's a lot of purples that are kind of hard to work with, but this one stays true to color and it doesn't fade. It's easy to blend. I really liked this shade. I thought it was very easy to blend, and it stays true to color, so it's a good shade. So I packed it there on the outer corner to give it some depth, and I kind of really packed that shade and then blended that up into the crease. But then I also put it in the inner corner because I kind of decided I wanted to do kind of like a dark smoky halo eye. I went ahead and put that color and packed it really good on the inner corner as well. And then I took the shade Zero Gravity, and that is the gray shade in the palette. That shade I packed on the outer corner and the inner corner and kind of blended it up into the crease just to give dimension on top of that purple, and it gave that depth that the purple needed. I would say the purple allows you to add depth, but the Zero Gravity kind of took it to the next level. I also put the shade Astrid Dust here in the lower lash line, and also took the shade Zero Gravity, and I used kind of just one of those flat defining brushes, and I just kind of tight lined my lower lash line with that shade. So then I took the shade Black Matter. I put the shade Black Matter on the outer corner and the inner corner. I wanted that shade and that depth on the outer and the inner. This shade, in my opinion, it's best applied with a finger. In this tutorials, you'll notice that I do use my felt tip applicator quite a bit during all the tutorials, and I was able to kind of pack that shadow on, but the brush doesn't really work with the shade. I've noticed I really struggle trying to get the brush to work. So a finger or a felt tip applicator is going to be your best bet when applying the shade Black Matter. It's a beautiful like charcoal smoky kind of color, but it also has those beautiful like purple undertones, and then it has that beautiful like silver glitter in it. It's just a really, really pretty shade. And then I went ahead and took the shade Electric Amethyst, and this is that beautiful, beautiful purple up on the top row, and I put that right directly on the middle of my lid, and I went directly in with my finger, and I think that shade is probably one of my favorite purple shades that I have in my collection. I also took the shade Electric Amethyst. I loved that shade so much that I decided to put it on my lower lash line because I felt... Next up, we have the second look. This look was kind of the turquoise, kind of greenish, bluish look. And first I went in with the shade Mystic Ice, and I put that in the crease. And let me repeat myself. I've used several shades like that. Several different palettes have a shade that's similar to that one. This one is the only one that I've used that actually stays true to color. So Jeffree Star has a shade similar to that in one of his palettes, and every time I would try to blend it out, I would just lose the pigmentation. This one does not do that. So once I got that shade nice and blended and exactly where I wanted it, yes, this is such a pigmented shade that I did go in very lightly with small dips and build as I need. That shade is so pigmented, I would definitely take your time. Then I went into the shade Stargaze on the lid, and that shade I was surprised by. So at first glance, before I started using the palette, I thought that shade was more of a turquoise shade, but it's not. It's definitely more of like a sky blue color, but it does have some turquoise and some dark blue shimmers in it. I put Stargaze on the lid and gently started to bring that out into the crease and blended it into Mystic Ice. And let me just say, that worked so good. That shade sprayed so beautifully and so even into the crease, really easy. Like, I kind of thought that I was gonna have a hard time with that shade, but I didn't. It went straight into that Mystic Ice. So then of course I took the shade Mystic Ice, I put that on the lower lash line, and then I also decided to line that with the shade Stargaze, because again, that shade Stargaze is so pretty. So here's the final look for both of these looks, the turquoise and the purple look, and I think these turned out so beautiful. And so, like, the purple was just so dark and mysterious and kind of perfect for the time of year that we're coming up into, like October. And then you have that beautiful bluish turquoise eye. Like, I don't play with a lot of color, but I really, really loved the way that both of these eyes turned out. For the lip, I used the Anastasia Beverly Hills. I used it in the shade San Tropez because I felt like even that shade went beautiful with the blue eye. It definitely matched the purple eye, but it looked really pretty with the blue eye. I will leave it linked in the description box down below in case you guys are interested in that shade. It's definitely one of my favorites. All right, let's move on to look number 3. So look number 3 is the eye look I was wearing on my right eye in the intro. And I first went in with the shade Lunar Eclipse in the crease, and I also packed this on the outer corner. This shade is that really pretty orange, like burnt orange color, and it's really pretty and it's crazy pigmented. As you can see, again, one dip and you get plenty of power in that eyeshadow to blend it out and kind of build as you need. So the next I went into the shade Storm Dust, which is that darker kind of brick orange red color, and I went ahead and put that in the crease, and I put it over top of everywhere that I did Lunar Eclipse, concentrating it more on the outer corner and kind of down into my eye socket of the crease. I didn't want to bring that out too far into the crease, so I kept it just kind of at the base of my crease so that it would give me the depth that I needed. So then I went into the shade Fireball on the lid, and I went ahead and put Fireball over top of the outer corner and really blended that in, but I did go into a little bit of Storm Dust and I put that over top of it just so that that Fireball would really blend into that outer corner. And then I dipped straight into the Eternal Light in the inner corner. Now, throughout all 4 looks, I've used the Eternal Light into the inner corner, and it is such a beautiful shade. That shade I placed on the inner corner and up into the middle of my lid, and then I worked to blend Eternal Light into Fireball. So I would go into a little bit of Eternal Light, then I would go into a little bit of Fireball, then I go back into Eternal Light and just kind of keep blending those in just so that you don't have any type of lines. I did take Eternal Light up in a little bit past my crease. Lately I've been really enjoying that. It feels like it really opens up my eye. I went ahead and put a little bit of Lunar Eclipse on the lower lash line, kind of buffed that out, and then I went into Eternal Light and went over top of it just to kind of give it a little bit of that depth. But this look was very easy to create, definitely not as hard as the last 2. Very easy but very pretty, and you kind of have like a pink reddish type of eyeshadow look when you get done, and it's really, really pretty. All right, let's move on to look number 4, the final look. I started with the shade Solstice on the middle and outer corner of my lid. I didn't go straight in with mattes. I went straight into Solstice. It's kind of a deceiving shade because it's not overly pigmented. In fact, had I to do it over, I probably would have put down a little bit of glitter glue with this one because I don't feel like this one is pigmented enough. I think this is the least pigmented shimmer shadow in the palette, and I feel like if I would have put some sort of glitter glue or something down, I really could have brought the intensity with that shade. I went ahead and put that all over the middle and the outer corner. I went into Lucid Dream. Lucid Dream is that really pretty magenta pink shade in the palette, and it's extremely pigmented. Lucid Dream is one of those shades that I struggle using in other palettes because when I put it on the eye, I lose the intensity. Not with this one. This one blends just so beautiful, and you still maintain the intensity of the actual shadow itself. I wanted the shade Solstice pretty much all over my eye. I took it all over from the middle to the outer corner, and then I brought it up into my crease and kind of blended it into my crease. But I needed to give some sort of depth to that shade, so that pink was just the perfect grab to do that with. And I just went ahead and added a little bit on that corner, blended it out, and then I took Lucid Dream, put it on the lower lash line, just kind of faded that in, blended out really good. I wanted it more blown out versus really highly pigmented, but if you really like pink, you could go in definitely way more heavy-handed with that shade than I did. So then I grabbed the shade Eternal Light, and of course I stuck that into the inner corner and kind of blended that into Solstice, and those two just melted into each other. Like, it wasn't nearly as hard to blend as it was the other eye. These two just blended right in together, and it was just like a perfect pair. Okay, now we got through the tutorials and the swatches of the palette. Let me give you guys my final thoughts. So My final thoughts on this palette is I really like the palette. I don't know that I'm going to be reaching for it all that much, only because these shades are only shades that I'm going to wear on those special occasions. They're just not my everyday type of shades. That's a personal thing, because I know a lot of you guys out there just absolutely love color. If you're somebody that just doesn't reach for color all that much, I don't really feel like this is a necessary palette to have in your collection. But for all of you color lovers out there, you will love this palette. You will absolutely love, love, love the pigmentation. Again, I repeat myself like I said in the tutorial. The thing that I liked most about this palette that I feel like stands out above some of the other palettes that I've used, from Jeffree Star to ABH, from Morphe, which, I mean, we all know that Morphe is not like a higher ended brand, but it's got decent pigmentation for the price. But out of all of the palettes that I've used that have a lot of color like this one, even Natasha Denona. In the Natasha Denona, I think it was the Viba palette. No, the Natasha Denona Safari palette. That palette had a similar shade like the Zero Gravity. I wanted that shade in that palette to work so bad. And every single time I would put it, I think it was the shade Rhino. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I'll have to check. But every time I would go in with that shadow, I would lose the pigmentation. I'd have to keep packing it on, and then I'd want to blend it in just a little bit, and I would lose it. It happened to me so much. Now, you guys know that I normally wear a concealer as my eyeshadow primer, or I do like my P. Louise eyeshadow base, and I do set my eyeshadow primer, whether it's concealer or the P. Louise, just because I don't like it to be super tacky, but that's just my preference. So, with all that said, I could not get that shadow to stay pigmented. I would put it on the eye and I would blend it and it would be gone. It drove me crazy, and then it was really patchy. This shade on the other hand, this shade, not even a little bit. You go in, now you guys know grays are hard, okay? Grays are so hard. That's what I love about this palette. For those of you that love color, you're gonna love it. It's so good. It is one of the best pigmented color palettes that I've used in a minute. The matte shades, in my personal opinion, are kind of the star of the show in this palette. They blend beautifully and they stay true to pigment. But as far as the shimmers go, I would say like you get pretty good pigmentation from this one. This one right here, this Eternal Light, this one she kind of commented like it was a glitter topper, but let me just say this, it's pretty pigmented for being a glitter topper. I mean, as you can see, it's right there in my inner corner. I've used a lot of those like topper kind of colors where they are made to kind of amplify any look, but this one actually has good pigmentation for being a topper. Stargaze, this one right here, and I would say Solstice and Fireball. If you want the most out of those as far as like impact, I recommend using a glitter glue, only because I think the glitter glue will give it that tacky base to really amplify and pack that color on and really get the intensity from the shade. I think they could have been a little bit more intense than they are, but they're just not. This one's getting a little bit hard panned, you know, as I've been swatching it and using the actual shade. So just know that there are some of the shimmer shades in here. You are probably going to have to use maybe some sort of a glitter glue to really make them pop, but it's totally capable. It's really easy. I like the one from Too Faced, but there's tons of glitter glues out there. I've heard that NYX has a really good one. This palette retails for $44. This palette is currently only available on the Dominique Cosmetics website. You do have to buy it from her website right now. If you use the code TRENDMOOD, you can receive 10% off, which is nice. For those who prefer to buy it on Sephora, this palette will be available at Sephora on September 27th online, and it will be in store on October 27th. So that's it for my review of this new Celestial Storm palette. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I love you all so, so much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Love you. Bye.